My name is Jerome, and I'm a very grateful and very fortunate member of Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date is June 6, 1973. And it's one thing that has always been important to me in Alcoholics Anonymous is this gift that I was given on that day. See, what has happened to me is that I don't have a disease. On that date, June 6, 1973, I was given a measure of unmerited grace. Not only grace, but mercy. Because my life hung in a thread. You know what, that phrase in chapter 11, well, the step 11 that we're reading tonight, why it's so important to me is it is a venture into what I like to think of as mental and emotional sobriety. A friend of mine says this all the time. You don't need to see my alcoholism because I'm drinking. You can see it in my behavior and my conduct. And that's why it's so important to me is to at least try in everything I do, especially in Alcoholics Anonymous and outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, to walk in a form of dignity and integrity. I think my venture in the step 11 probably came way before I even got to Alcoholics Anonymous. It was in the 50s. My mother had a chest x-ray and they spotted a spot on her lungs. And in the 50s, if you had a spot on your lungs, you were doomed. There was no treatment for cancer, none whatsoever. And my big mama came, my dad's mama. She didn't want to be called grandmama. You better not call her grandma. She was big mama. She came, and it was in the summer. And it was a bunch of us kids in the house because I have about 5, 6 siblings under me. And we was all running around there. And I wanted to go to the pool and go swimming. And my mom had went to the hospital to get a second opinion. And Big Mama came. And she said, we ain't going nowhere. You ain't going to play nowhere. And we gonna pray. And Big Mama prayed from the moment my mama left until she came back. And we had to be there, right there while she was praying. And my mom came back after all those hours down at General Hospital getting that exam. And she came back with good news. There was no spot on her lungs. And that was my first introduction to the power of prayer. But as any young man who is wayward, who think he knows and want to grow up too fast, curiosity got me and I started drinking wine. And when I started drinking wine, I drifted farther and farther and farther away from God. Me and God was not on speaking terms. But I like to say this. It was the prayers of my mother, the prayers of her prayer group. It was prayers of people I didn't even know was praying for me. That's why I'm here today. Because when I got sober and my sponsor, Jack, made me do institutional work up at General Hospital. And I had been to County General Hospital on the detox wards more times than I could count. And this nurse, I'm sitting there talking in the meeting. And after the meeting, she is bawling and she is crying. And I was just an awful, hateful person. You talking about venom coming out of my mouth and that alcoholism, it just spread. because I hated everything that moved. But this lady on the ward was a nurse. She said, I was praying for you. Every time you came here, I prayed for you. And my God answered my prayers. Look at you. But I like to think where I really started seeking this God was, I didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous. I grew up in South Central. We didn't talk about AA and nothing like that where I come from, you know. I met this girl in the mental institution up at Camarillo State Hospital. She knew about AA. She had experience with AA. And she's told me, she said, you know, Jerome, it works. I was working it, but I refused to do a fourth and fifth step. And I got drunk. And she said, before I leave here, I'm going to do my fourth and fifth step. And she did. And she read it to me. I guess she didn't think I was going to stick around. I used to tell her, I say, baby, you don't need to tell me all that. You're going to mess up our relationship. But she took me to that first meeting. And she went off and left. And I stumbled into a men's meeting on the ward. There wasn't nobody but men in that meeting. And they all shared their experience, strength, and hope. And I guess it was about 3 minutes before the meeting was over. I was the only newcomer from the hospital in there. And they asked me, do you want to share? And that was the first time I heard my voice. And my heart says, my name is Jerome, and I'm an alcoholic. But I had this dilemma. The dilemma I had was felt like I never had a personal conscious contact with God, because I was always comparing your contact with the contact that I had. And I was always deficient in that. So I left that meeting confused, and I stumbled upon this Jesuit priest. He was in the garden. He was praying. I didn't care if he was praying. I wanted him to give me some answers right now. And I went with a tirade and interrupted his praying, and he stopped and he listened to me rant and rave. And he told me this. He said, you know, young man, God is whatever you want him to be. And he gave me this tract. Yeah, I'd never seen it in the Bible. It was, oh, how constant is your precious love. Oh, Lord, I seek protection under the comforts of your wings. If anybody need protection, it was me. Because I knew I could not defeat that drink. I know I was getting ready to go to jail for 366 days. The probation officer came up there and told me, if you get arrested for spitting on the sidewalk or jaywalking, you're going to do 366 days in the Los Angeles County Jail. And you won't get one day a good. This probation officer came up there on Mother's Day with his 90-year-old mother. And I'm getting ready to get out of this hospital. And I started reading that thing over and over and over again. And it has become, I think, the foundation of my recovery. It has been the strength that I've relied on. You know, book says we should memorize some prayers if we're not associated with any religion. And I'm going to share this with you. And it's, oh, how constant is your precious love. I seek protection under the comforts of your wings. For you have made this day. Let me rejoice and be glad in it. For today is the first day of my life. For the rest of my life. One day at a time. And thank you, dear God, just for this day. And may you lead and may you guide me in this prosperous new life. And may I never forget, during the sunshine of my life during the storms of my life and after the rains of my life. There's peace with you, dear God, always and forever. And all praise to the loving, living God, to whom all praise is due. You know, I had a spiritual awakening that day, and it scared me half to death. It scared me. And I think I've had other ones before that, and they all scared me. Because, see, fear had always dominated my life. You know, I got out of that hospital. My dad, the deacon, I'm his oldest son. He used to say, "You're my gold child." But gold had turned to 10. You know, he would come down to the jailhouses and nut houses to see about his crazy son. And he'd always ask that $64,000 question, "Why do you have to come to places like this?" And I would drop my head because I would wonder that. Why? Because I would have some lucid moments. I couldn't say, you know, I suffered from an incurable illness called chronic acute alcoholism. I suffer from a spiritual malady. My spirit is sick. And it can only be treated in increments of 24 hours. I have to treat it every day. And the most powerful way I can treat it is like that phrase throughout the day. Not only when I'm agitated, overwhelmed, and frustrated and in despair, is to take a step back. And my only option, the only option I have, no matter what's going on in my life, good, bad, and indifferent, is to pray. To ask my God, thy will be done and not mine. Because if you understand, I didn't even run my life in the ground. That wine just hijacked me and took me wherever it wanted me to do. It made me do what it wanted me to do. I already felt that I wasn't nothing, I wasn't going to be nothing, and the wine sealed the deal. Because I could always crawl up into that bottle. But that's been the hallmark of my recovery. Is the fact that I found a loving God that not only solved my drinking problems, have solved all my problems. And that powerful phrase, especially if I have some emotion in it. See, that's the key to it. When I pray, I need that emotion behind it. That's why I have to pray in secret. That's why it's only me and God. This little old sponsor I had, God bless him, he was my sponsor for 36 years, 5 months and 8 days. I had met him when Bonnie took me to an outside meeting out of the hospital. We got in front of the meeting. We were supposed to go to the motel after the meeting. I wanted to go to the motel before the meeting. And I was getting belligerent. And she was getting ready to concede to my will. And I made the best mistake of my life. I said, "Bonnie, we don't need this AA stuff. I'll sponsor you and you sponsor me and we'll keep each other sober." But this little old guy walked right into the conversation. He got between me and her. He got all in my face. I'm looking down at him and he's spitting up in my face talking about, "I'll be your damn sponsor." And he said, "Jack K is my name and sobriety is my game. Call anytime." That man used to tell me this all the time when I was new. He'd be giving me a ride and he'd talk about his God and he could see I was uncomfortable. He could tell I was uncomfortable. And I'd get out of the car and he'd roll his window down and he'd say, "Jerome, anytime I talk about God, just add another O to it and call it good." And he said, ain't it good that you sober? The only thing I had good going for me, I hadn't drank that day. Because I ain't nothing and I ain't going to be nothing. My life was in shambles at 25 years old. I came out of that madness and it terrified me. You would say, what's the use? Look what you've done. You can't recover. But I found solace when I sit amongst you. I found a haven when I congregated with you. When I followed some of your simple directions, it gave me hope. And that hope, a wish just to be a little bit better, turned into a viable faith that is unshakable because you introduced me to this God. And I found him in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Because Jack told me to read We the Agnostics every day. And it jumped out at me. The book is riddled with avenues and directions to tap into this power with a firm foundation of why it is necessary for me to do it. And I was reading that chapter and it jumped out at me. It says, when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could neither postpone nor evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is or either God is not. What's your choice to be? And I like to add this. Either he can or he can't. What is your choice? I found every time when I say he can and I get out of the way, by that simple thing it says in the book, pause, Jerome, pause. Don't write nothing. That's what Jack would say. Don't write nothing. I had a bad habit. I'm going to go give him a piece of my mind, Jack. I'm going to go give him a piece of my mind. And he said, hold it, Jerome, hold it. Don't go over there and give nobody a piece of your mind. It might be the last piece you have. Hold on to it. Just these simple things. Oh, Jack, he asked me, why are you on SSI? I said, Jack, well, I'm disabled. He said, you don't look disabled. I said, no, Jack, I'm really crazy. That's why they give me SSI. And then I'm going to clean it up, right? I'm really playing crazy for the money, Jack. And Jack said, Jerome, there's a distinct line between playing crazy and being crazy. Sometimes you think you playing. You have skipped across the line. If I were you, I wouldn't play crazy. See, the prayer in Thy Will Be Done has allowed me to challenge those distortions in my thinking and in my emotion. Because see, if I'm angry, not some of the time, not most of the time, every time I'm angry, I lose. I lose. I have already lost. And sometimes early in my sobriety, my anger would have me so angry, I'd go into an angry blackout. As if I was drunk. And I come to find out anytime I'm angry, my executive brain is shut off. And I'm operating on that primitive brain. And my brain is riddled with fear. It's shot through with it. And the fear turns to paranoia. And then I start acting in all kind of ways that are detrimental to me and myself. That's why it was critical that I have a spiritual advisor. That's who my sponsor is. He was my spiritual advisor. He had knowledge and skills about how to traverse and develop this spiritual life. Because, we say sobriety is not enough. It's not enough. See, there was a long reconstruction ahead for me. And the only way I was going to do that, because as my previous sponsor, he just died last year, Johnny, he used to say this all the time, Jerome, everything good and decent in my life is directly the result of the God I found here. If you see anything significant, achievement, pure materially in anything, it's because God did that. Jerome did not do that. Jerome maybe did the willingness and the honesty to do it, but everything that I've accomplished in my life is directly the result of the God I found here. I came here, my psychiatrist said I would never function in society. They said I'd be in some boarding care home, some penal institution on psychotropic medication for the rest of my life. That was their diagnosis. But see, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous introduced me and made me starkly aware that I am a child of God. I have always been a child of God. And this God not only solves some of my problems, solve all of my problems if I get out of the way. I'm so thankful for Alcoholics Anonymous, what it done for me. Because I was lost. I was just looking for somewhere to lay down and die. But all those people that prayed for me. And I think about my dad, the deacon. All the jail houses he came to, all the nut houses he came to. How many times he's put his house up to keep me from going to jail. I came to this house when he was going to offer me to keep me from off the street. I beat him down in his own home. And the next day, threatened his sister. She pulled a gun on me. And I got off that jailhouse floor on the 5th of June, on the 6th of June with my 1 day of sobriety. And I went to that meeting at 9604 on Friday night, the beginners group. This time, I didn't sit in the back. I sat up front like they used to tell the newcomers. I sat up front. And when they asked for newcomers, I raised my hand. And they gave me this guy 12-stepping that night. His name was John A. And I told John, I don't want to hear your whining. I don't want to hear your sad sob stories. Put me out. I'll walk the rest of the way home. And I'm walking back down the Skid Row because that's the only place I have to go. And I get almost to Skid Row. And God spoke to me. It was just a simple voice. It said, if you go back down the Skid Row, Jerome, you're going to Skid Row to die. And this time it will be no coming back for you. And I stopped in my tracks. And I turned around and I went to my dad's house. That's why my story is a biblical story. And this is a story that's repeated over and over again. My story is the story of the prodigal son. Because I knocked on his door after beating him down in his own house, cussing his wife out, bursting out every window. And he asked me, what do you want? And I said, Daddy, will you please help me? Will you please help me? I ain't got no place to go. But I think I found a way not to drink. Will you please help me? I get choked up with it every time. As a father to a son, he didn't owe me anything. He could have shut the door and turned around went in this house. He could have told me, you get the hell away from my house or I'm going to kill you. But he heard me. He heard that broken voice. And he said, son, go back there and lay down. But if you drink, please leave. See, I used to think that was love. Yes, that was love. But it was a deeper love. He offered me grace and mercy. And I didn't deserve either. Because if I got what I deserved, I would have been dead a long time ago. Because I think this God and these people have been praying for me over and over again. Because I didn't see my life. I didn't see it snap right before me. Shoot, I'm 21 years old. I done been stabbed in the back with 94 stitches. And I'm out there on the streets next to this guy, and we grew up together, and the guy steps out of the car and shoots him in the head, and blood man splashes on me. And he looks at me with the pistol and he says, well, I'm not going to shoot your ass because you already stabbed up, and walk away. That's God. That wasn't no coincidence. But I like to say this. I think my time is up. Have I got to that 5-minute point?
Not yet. You got 8 minutes. You got 8 minutes.
I like to think is this. God sent this angel. She has to be an angel. This angel called Guinevere Knight. Nobody drops off the planet. Nobody drops off the planet. Not with the internet today. My friend who's a lawyer, right, over in India, he said, you know what? We lawyers have this here program where we could put a name in and we can locate almost anybody. He put her name in and nothing exists. Nothing exists. So I'm inclined to believe that God put that lady named Guinevere Knight, a.k.a. Bonnie, into my life to bring me to you people. Because she would say things like this. She said, you know, Jerome, I was watching you walk, and I feel compelled to tell you this. I said, tell me what? She said, you know what, Jerome? Someday you're going to do something with your life. And someday you're going to be an awesome father. And when she told me that, I said to myself, I didn't tell her that. I said, shit, that ain't going to happen to me. But that happened because my sponsor, Jack, used to say this, Jerome, there is a mystic power in the universe that can so radically change your life, your family and friends will hardly be able to recognize you when it is through with you. And he said, Jerome, you won't even be able to recognize yourself. This mystic power could put you in your right place in life, a place that goes somewhere with purpose, meaning, and dignity. And it's your divine birthright to tap into that power. Because that's something that Joy's husband, Peter F., used to say all the time. He called them the 6 rules. The 6 rules to get you to that point. The first rule is you need a sobriety date. A non-negotiable date that is non-negotiable. Nothing is equal to that date. The second rule is you have to have a home group. The third rule is you have to have a sponsor that will take you through the first 11 steps. I had a sponsor that took me through the first 11 steps, and I've had not only many spiritual awakenings, now I'm having a spiritual experience on a day at a time. Me and my God, when I allow my God to do what he needs to do. But when I done everything I can, thy will be done. And that takes me to the sixth rule, which I didn't think was possible. Not for someone like me. See, the sixth rule is that I get the opportunity to insist on enjoying life. I have a good life today. An awesome life that I never thought possible. I have 4 kids, 2 sons, and 2 daughters. They're all gone now and they're all doing well. I've become an awesome father. Just like that lady said. And she said I would do something with my life. And what I've done with my life, I came here unemployable. And I've been employed with the post office 21 years. And now I'm with Kaiser another 23. I want to work 25. I'm still working at 78. And I avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery. And I've been able to face life on life's terms, not ducking or dodging any of life's issues. Because when it's all said and done and I've done everything I can do and I say, thy will be done, I step back and I allow my God to demonstrate his omnipotence and his power in my life. I give my life to my God every day because I know he can. So I'm going to let him. Thank you all for letting me share. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And thank you, Ralph, if you brought me here to this meeting, and all those who had their hand in coming here. I see a lot of faces I know. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for contributing to my life. Thank you.
Marilyn, come on up, please.
Hi, hello, Fabi. My name is Marilyn. I am an alcoholic, and I had to get my hand up to thank you, Jerome. I just love it when you share. I just love to hear you share it. It's such a spiritual message. You said that your story is a biblical story because you're the prodigal son, and I feel that every time that you share. I just wanted to ask one quick question. I really appreciate that share. I'm going to say that again. But I just want to ask one quick question. When you said you heard the voice of God when you were headed back down to Skid Row, because it was all that you knew, and you turned around, you said, I stopped in my tracks. Did you have a knowing somewhere in your spirit that that was it, that you were done?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But I know I couldn't go where I was going.
Thank you, Jerome. Thank you so much for being you.
Vera, come on up, please.
Hi, Vera, grateful recovered alcoholic. Jerome, thank you so much for your share tonight. I really appreciate you reminding me that whatever's good and decent in my life is coming from God, right? I think something that I've noticed is that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing pretty good at this mental and emotional sobriety, like forgetting, like it's not me, right? But at the same time, when like life shows up, like life always shows up, but like life on life's terms, but it's like a bunch of terms like all at once, right? And like that kind of uneasiness or like easily to anger kind of comes up, and you're still doing the prayer and the meditation, and like what else do you do to be more present and like connected with your higher power when all of the things are happening all at once, and like maybe you thought you had it, but like you really don't. It's God.
On that question, it's like I pause. See, I'm a therapist, so I tell people a lot how to deal with a lot of anxious situations. And I like stop. I stop, think, look at my options, and I pray. Whatever it is, I stop. I think, or I take a step back from it. I look at my options and I pray.
Thank you, Jerome. Debbie V, you're up. You okay? You got some sort of mask on there. Come on up, please.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Debbie.
And my thing's making a lot of noise. My oxygen's not working properly right now. I just wanted to share very briefly that I spoke to both of my sponsors today. I'm sober 28 years. I spoke to my old sponsor in a nursing home as well as my new one. And they asked me to share. So here I am. And this was the perfect message because for the first time in my life, I have no children. I have no mom. I have nobody. And I have God, and I'm good with it. I'm happy. I'm content. I'm peaceful. My whole family is so dysfunctional. It took me 29 years to get to this point. I'm okay with it. They don't talk to me. They hate each other. They hate me. I don't like that word hate. And I just pray for everybody. And I thank the speaker because he kicked butt. He was excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Pamela, come on up, please.
Hi, my name is Pamela, and I'm an alcoholic, and I would never say Jerome Scott. I always say Mr. Scott. It's always good to see you, and it's even better to hear you. My question for you is, I know you lost your sponsor, and I know you're a bellflower, and your wife is one of the people I follow around. I can quote a book, but I want to be a woman of dignity and grace, and she and Francine are two of my lights. But have you changed everything? Have you changed? Have you found a new sponsor? Do you think you're at the point where you don't need to? You've been sober a long time. You don't need a sponsor. You can't, you're not going to go to Bellflower anymore because Johnny's not here. Have you shifted everything in your life? And how do you get through that point when you've made these relationships with these people and then you've got to do something different?
Do I sponsor myself? They say a lawyer who represents themselves is a fool. No, I don't. I have a sponsor. My new sponsor, he's a member of the Bellflower Big Book Group. His name is Jim H. And Jim has been sober 40 years. And I've been sober 52 years. But see, Jim has a lot of life experiences that could definitely benefit me on my journey. He's been to a lot of places that I have not been. And I'm so appreciative of his guidance and direction. So years of sobriety is good. And you know that saying they say, quantity versus quality. I like his quality.
Thank you, Jerome. Ralph, come on up, please, brother.
You guys don't want to let me unmute. My name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic. And he was at Bellflower last night, Pam. So to that question, sitting in his regular seat with his regular crew surrounding him. Thank you, sir. You said so much tonight. And like Marilyn, I get chills with the prodigal son too. Question. When you talked about that kind of blackout anger, and there are something, and I have a sponsee on here, and I was so glad you were talking about that. Because when it's something that I guess comes over you, you despair it'll ever be something that goes away. Is that something that for you now is totally in the rearview mirror, that blackout anger? And if it's the case, was it something, Jay, that looking back you've discovered as a result of what you've been doing, it's gone, or was it incremental? And
Ralph, I figured that blackout anger is just like the obsession to drink. I don't think it's permanently eradicated. I think it's contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. If I'm not taking care of my spiritual condition, the obsession to drink can come back. And so can that anger. Because for me, I think that's what takes that obsession, that emotional anger or the resentments, real or imagined, they have the power to kill. They can be real. But my response to a resentment is I have to pray for them. And I'm going to say this right quick. I learned that from my first marriage. My sponsor told me, he said, "What do you want, Jerome?" I said, Jack, I want to be happy, joyous, and free again. And I want my family back. And he said, the chances of your family coming back is slim and nil. But if you want to be happy, joyous, and free, you're going to have to pray for her to have exactly what you want. And you have to pray that she have it first. And if there's anything left, give it to you. And I was defiant. And the pain brought me to the point. So anytime I have that anger, that's the key. The lack of power is my dilemma. More prayer, more power. No prayer, no power. So find your closet.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Jerome. Mike, come on up, my friend.
Mike, alcoholic. Thank you, Jerome. Really appreciate that. You mentioned that you prayed. How did you say it? Praying with emotion. And what does that look like? Is that out loud? And do you ever find yourself, like I sometimes do, just not finding the words? They're just not coming into my soul. And tell me a little bit about that.
See, I have a repertoire of prayers. When one doesn't work, one of them will. One of them is going to work. I'll tell you my favorite prayers. All of them came out of Emmett Fox's book, Sermon on the Mount. He talks about it. That's why I love them. There's the Lord's Prayer. There is the 23rd Psalm. And my favorite is the 27th Psalm.
Thank you, sir. Allison, come on up, please.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Jerome, for such a powerful message tonight. You said something early in your share. You can see my alcoholism in my behavior and my conduct. And I know in my own experience, as I started to understand my alcoholism, I started to recognize some of my defects of character and poor behavior, but I didn't have the power to not do it. And it took a long time for some of those things to be removed. Can you share your own experience on when you started to recognize that you made mistakes, you made errors, but maybe you didn't know how to fix it at the moment?
Well, Jack and I had a deal. We had a deal. He said, "Can I do these 3 things?" I said, "What? Can you do these 3 things? Do what you say you're going to do. Be where you say you're going to be. Be with who you say you're going to be with." And if any of those 3 things changes, he needed to know about it 5 seconds before God knows about it. And we had a deal that I don't take on no problem unless we start it together. I don't take on a problem and then go, after I had messed up, come and ask my sponsor to help me clean it up. Because I have this problem right now on my job. Before I took any action, I went and running by my sponsor. He ain't giving me advice, but we're going on this journey together. Because when we do this together, it's like what some of my Christian friends say, where two or more are us together, there I am in the midst. There's a power there. When I'm able to honestly tell him, that's what we mean by being current with our sponsor. Not after the fact, before the fact. That's my take on that.
Thank you, Jerome. We have two hands up. Hopefully we can get to both of them. Win, come on up, please.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And you spoke a lot about prayer. And I was wondering, would you share a little bit about, your meditation practice, if there's a difference?
My meditation practice is simply, I try to be mindful and I try to get quiet and I try to feel my God. Because see, when I'm praying, I don't want to sound like I'm the parrot, because the parrot is in the cage. So I want to pack fresh emotion into my prayer. And I like the fact that I have a wife that loves to pray too. And so in the morning, sometimes before I go to work, she done fixed my lunch, fixed the coffee, and turned on and warmed up the house so I can get ready to leave. She'll say a prayer for me. And sometimes I say a prayer for her. I call that the joy of the living. But you don't have to be fancy with your words with God. He just want me as I am. Just as I am.
Rebecca, come on up, please, to close us out.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Scott. Thank you for your beautiful share. Truly. My question is, so I know some people add unique questions to their step 10. I wanted to know if you have any questions that you've added to your step 10 that you would like to share with us.
On step 10, see, step 10 is essential in connecting it with the 11th step. On my step 10, I always ask myself, what could I do better? Could I have handled it better? And that's a part of being current with my sponsor too. That's step 10. But then I pray about it. That's how I let go. I don't know how anybody else let go. I pray about it and I ask God, you handle this. You take this. And every time it comes up again, I remind myself, thy will be done. God, I've given this problem to you. That lowers that threshold of that anger and that frustration. Because you can get peace right across the room. If you got some issues, just like me. You know, the people in your life, just like me. They're trying to find their way. They're trying to find some peace, just like me. Just like me, they're trying to find some love and understanding, just like me. Then you're not adversarial. That don't mean you get close to everybody now. That's why you have to do it from afar. What one of my friends say, one of my babies says, some people you can't get close to even if you were cremated with them. But that don't mean you don't love them now. You love them anyway. I want to thank y'all for asking me to come out, and I really appreciate this meeting. Thank you for having me. It was an honor, thank you for having me. Now I have to run to my sponsees meeting. Okay, so I'm going to